there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with Kicking It to You.
Can't say the name of the episode yet.
That's
so
right.
Here's what. No, that's okay. Here's what we're gonna reformat this a little bit. So today we're going to be talking about one of the scariest songs of the '90s. We're going to be talking about how.
If you say Barbie Girl, I'm going to be pissed because I love that song.
Why pissed? I love the song too, and it's one of the
good.
scariest. This is going to be a very pro of the song. So I'm not. This is not a takedown. So if you like that song, then and that's the song,
all right.
which it's not. Then I'd be hardcore backing it. We're going to be talking about how Shudder listens to our podcast, changes its behavior based on our podcast,
Clearly.
and has now we're lying, and is now
No, Craig Engel, his alarm clock is our newest episode. I don't know how he does it.
I don't know how he does it, but they literally, this is one of the best comebacks of. Like we went from our last episode of whatever to now like the love letter to
We were
Shudder.
like, Creep Show, what are you doing? Fix your shit.
Right.
And then we caught up and we're like,
This is gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
So we got that coming
not
up,
on Creep Show. We didn't catch him on Creep Show and be like, what a great course correction.
and then Nick is gonna pull the Martin Sheen Dead Zone move. He's gonna grab a famous human body as a shield. He's gonna hide behind it.
Oh, I'm not hiding.
He's gonna take on an
We're-
issue, and then he's gonna emerge from behind, guns blazing, and he's gonna like just like really.
It'll be like Neo in the Matrix when he goes through the metal detector and he throws back his gun. Oh shit!
That's exactly what's going to happen. So that's what's coming up in this episode. We sort of vague booked it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start this with the absolute last thing you should ever do, ever. If you're a podcast, you're listening, if you're thinking about being a podcast, just listen to what I'm about to do and do the opposite, and you will be successful. I am going to show Nick a picture to kick off our podcast. Actually, 3. So these are people reacting. This is a reaction video, and I want you to try to imagine what movie they're seeing or what scene they're seeing or like whatever. Here's their picture. Now, reaction videos, even for dark things, really, the thumbnails are fascinating. When you go to YouTube and you thumbnail it, like even if they're like watching Saving Private Ryan or like whatever,
Right.
the thumbnail's always shook, and then it's like
it looks like they got their dick caught in a mouse trap.
totally.
Oh.
And then even if it's music, even if it's dark music, like Led Zeppelin, No Quarter or whatever, it's always, or Dazed and Confused, Led Zeppelin, the thumbnail's always like, wow, that man can sing. And then even if like whatever. So I want to show you this reaction. These are different, all reacting to the same thing. Here you go. That's the picture.
they look
Describe to the
not-
listeners.
So the first guy is like, "Come on, man." The second guy's like, "Come on, man." And the third couple's like, "Come on, man." That's what that looks like.
Exactly right. So I've located one of my favorite songs.
If you put a gun in my head and said, "What are they reacting to?" There's no way I get this right. Like I have like a 1 in 6 trillion%.
Yeah,
like 1 in
no,
6
you
trillion
had no chance
to get that
You
right.
had no chance to get it right, but it was by way of they all look like very concerned. Is the vibe I got?
Yeah,
from it.
the eyes are like focusing in on something that they probably don't want to be focusing in.
Right, and they right exactly, which is why I find this so fascinating. So they are all reacting to the Filter song, "Hey Man, Nice Shot." It was, a couple of them are reacting
yeah.
to the video. A couple of them are reacting to just like a karaoke video that's just lyrics. I have yet to find anyone on YouTube who has enjoyed this song. Every reaction has been the same. So Nick, I'm telling you, there is a moment in this in the couple you saw, which is really cool. I'll try to link their channel in the show notes because they're actually really good. But they started, and when the song starts, the first like rock out, moment, the song, right?
Yeah. We've talked about
Yeah,
it. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So when it starts to rock out, the one girl throws her hands in the air, and the guy, her husband or boyfriend, whoever's sitting next to her, is like honing in, like, don't celebrate too hard. He's like, I can feel it's going to be a mistake. And then he starts screaming, and she just gets like stunned, and then it goes back into her shell. But there's this creepy, unsettling feeling that settles, that you could feel it come to all of them at some point, where they're not enjoying it. They're trying to figure it out. Then it feels like someone came into the room and maybe is threatening them. Slender Man's at the door, right? Like, it's very strange watching this old song creep into people's bones and unsettle them. Now, legendarily, this song is about really horrendous things and really bad stuff. It's suicide, trigger warnings, all that stuff. So I'm not here to talk about that. I don't care about that right now. The reason I'm bringing this up is, and I'm not even gonna, it'll come up later, but the reason I'm bringing this up is that there is, the song lyrics don't make a lot of sense, actually, when you think about them, right? So there are things he's saying. So it's about someone who literally stuck a gun and shot themselves, right? In their mouth and shot themselves, right? So ostensibly, most likely. So when you have a song like that and you have a line that says, I wish I could have met you, I could have saved some face. Save some face takes on, right?
Yeah.
Right. Takes on very ominous connotations, especially with the music behind it, right? Well, it turns out this song was accidentally a hit. I didn't know this. It was accidentally released because of Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. That movie made this song get released. It was played for the first time in America on a radio station at 2 a.m, and the radio station phone bank went nuts. It was back then when that could happen, right?
Wow.
And this song was just leaked. He had just left Nine Inch Nails. This song was leaked, and then all of a sudden, everyone was demanding it. It became a hit. It was leaked because it was part of the movie. Horror fans knew this was them. They could feel it. It was used in X-Files with Jack Black, like we talked about, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, that arcade episode.
The arcade episode where it's really, really well used. But it's in Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. It's in other things. It's in video games. It's a very strange song. It was very strange that it became a hit. But the amazing thing about this to me is that there's a lot of stuff in the song. It's scary and unsettling, but the plot of the song doesn't make much sense, right? So if he says, I wish I could have met you, I could have saved some face. Well, he didn't kill himself. The lead singer, what face is he saving, right? If I wish I could have met you, maybe I could have talked you out of it, but that's unlikely because it's a really young person writing a song about a really old person who really knew what they were doing and probably wasn't going to be stopped, right? So that doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of time jumps in the song where what's happening plot-wise don't make sense, and it's because he was really young when he wrote it, right? But he said something really cool about the riff when he said, "I wrote the song. The riff came to me, and I was like,
who's the?"
So his name's Richard Patrick. He quit Nine Inch Nails to start Filter. He was a guitarist for Nine Inch Nails, right?
Gotcha.
He's written amazing songs, but this is the one he's known for. He said this paid for 15 years of my life, like my mortgage, my everything, like whatever. He's super grateful to the song, right? But he also said when the riff came to me, he was like, I couldn't believe it didn't exist before. And then he goes, when I got on the stage, I realized you could play this riff forever. He's like, I feel like when I get on stage, I could just play this riff forever, and it would just be interesting the whole time, and the audience would like. And you watch him, and he's playing the song when they're playing live, and the crowds get hypnotized, right? It's scary. It takes you by surprise. It's unsettling, but the plot doesn't make a lot of sense. A lot of time jumps in the lyrics, and that's all gonna come to bear as we proceed. But let's get to the meat of what we're here for, because you have been drawing me into Shudder more and more and more.
I'm sitting there. Well, first off, real quick, if I had to pair that song with something,
yes,
there's a song I heard called "Congratulations, You Survived Your Suicide."
Whoa!
And it is.
Who does that?
I couldn't tell you, but
Google it while you talk.
Apparently it was some guy. The song was supposed to come out, but it didn't. And then people were like, "When's this song going to come out?" And eventually came out, but it's just a guy singing and a guitar, and he's kind of strumming it kind of harsh because it's just dung dun 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 dun, and then the songs go, "Congratulations, you survived your suicide. Your head still bippity bops from side to side."
Wow! Oh, I just found it. Who is this? So this is Sycamore Smith. That's an ominous name.
I would pair that with that song. I think it'd be
for sure. Well, you've been playing a lot of guitar, so I am going to see if you will play. I don't know. See if you can do I don't know because that's a lot of bass, but
it'd be interesting to check out. Okay, so
you have been drawing me more and more into Shudder. Creepshow was like a false start, like we'll call it a SpaceX blow up on the launch pad situation.
Exactly.
And then Joe Bob. Now I have been so impressed and blown away. But I've been talking for a while, so you set us up. Tell us what Joe Bob's been doing and up to, because I'm so excited to get to he's hitting home runs left and right.
First off, if it wasn't for Joe Bob, Shudder wouldn't have a whole lot. If I'm, in my opinion,
Right.
In my opinion,
Well, Shudder has some amazing stuff, but their inventory rotates. So there are times where you log on, and you're like, wow, I can't find anything here.
my favorite thing about Shudder is the 3 live channels, the Slashix.
You do love the lives.
I don't know. There's something about it, like
That's cool,
just catching it on live. But anyways,
Because I can't get you watch live TV for anything. Like, we literally will pass on BattleBots just for we can watch it an hour later, not live.
without commercials.
But the fact that you're watching live Shudder is
It's so
pretty
much
nice.
easy. Well, also Shudder does not have commercials.
That's true.
So that is
Good on you.
that's a
Shudder.
big plus. No, I was about like okay, so I've been slowly getting over my FOMO, my fear of missing out.
Yes.
Like I used to have like the worst FOMO. Like if people were like, we went out and got ice cream and went to the
true.
store and bought some, nice candles or something like that. I'm like, oh, I wish I was out
You're like, what the hell?
out there. So I used to only want to watch Joe Bob live, or else I was like, what's the point? I feel like I was missing out on the group element of it.
Yep.
But I was just looking at all the video or the movies he was doing this year, and I was like, we watched House by the Cemetery, and I remember loving that movie that I got from like a dollar bin in like 2010. So I was like, it'll be fun to watch it like
Which probably looked much worse than what we watched.
probably.
Right.
In fact, it might have been one of those $1 films, but then like I feel like Walmart always had those like $5 collections that had like 40 movies in it.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like all the free movies.
Absolutely.
As many movies as they could fit onto a DVD.
Totally. It was like all of the Amityville franchise besides the first one and this and that.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, it'd be really cool to watch Joe Bob's insight on this one because he usually does really cool knowledge and trivia about the movie and does a really good job at selling it to you. And then Bride of Reanimator came on. I was like, oh, I think I'd really like to, I'd like to check that one out. So turns out Joe Bob's great whenever the hell you watch him. He's great.
when he's great, he's great. Right?
Great all the time. And so I'm glad we started watching more because I wanted to get into.
Can I just point out the irony of how you set this up? Because you're like, no one can sell you a movie like Joe Bob. Joe Bob hated House by the Cemetery. he hated it. He hated it all the way through. And everyone was trying to sell it to him. Darcy, Eli Roth, everyone was trying to. No one could sell him.
Oh
House by
God!
the
Don't
Cemetery.
get us started on Eli Roth.
Well, I mean, we're here to talk.
If I lived in Ohio and I still had to worry about the leaves, instead of a leaf blower, I would just say, "Hey, talk about Italian horror films," and just hold Eli Roth by his pants and watch him blow all the leaves out because it's just hot air coming.
Well, wait a minute. We got to be fair about it. So I don't know if you want to talk about this now and then because we're setting it up, but we'll get to everything.
We'll get to
so,
the other.
yeah.
He did say some cool shit though. I don't want to drag him the whole.
Well, no,
way.
I went after Eli Roth more than you. I'm not going to hide, but to be fair, he knows a lot about Italian horror.
Sure does.
Some of that air isn't hot, but we'll get to it. Okay. But yeah, so House by the Cemetery, which Joe Bob loathed,
and we love,
but we loved, and everyone around him loved, and we're like, good.
And then Bride of Reanimator, which I think like holy when he says it's an underrated classic, he is right. I would.
Which, by the way, I just say neither of us had seen, which is shocking.
Right.
Because I've seen, there's a lot of horror people who have seen more horror movies than I have, but like it was weird to me because I make a thing, it's a thing with me of hunting down the sequels to movies that I think were great, just in the hopes. Like Fly 2, Pet Sematary 2, Exorcist 3.
The Fly 2 is...
And the fact that I love Reanimator and never saw Bride of Reanimator is stunning. Especially Bride of Frankenstein might be my favorite horror movie.
I wonder if it's because they made like a handful of them. And when they start to get that handful, you're like, oh, wow, muddy waters up ahead.
It honestly was that I hate to... in my case, and I hate to say it because it was a mistake, I was just very team Stuart Gordon. I was very disappointed he wasn't there. So it was just why I stopped watching Twin Peaks in real time. I didn't watch much of Twin Peaks season 2. David Lynch basically left. I was like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Right. And then I watched when he came back, which was the end. Right. So I did the same thing with Reanimator. I left and I was waiting for Stuart Gordon to come back, and he didn't come back, but it was a mistake because, as you go ahead.
Yeah. But I just love Joe Bob when Joe Bob has like something he's trying to say. Like, I love it when he was talking about people when they fuck up, you give them another chance. And what happens if they mess up again? Well, guess what? You give them another chance. I loved that. I loved in season 1 when they ended it, they gave a shout out to the whole crew. Because I remember being a PA thinking, like, oh, when I'm a director, I'm going to give a shout to all the crew. You know, hasn't happened yet.
Right.
But Joe Bob did it. And
no one ever does.
But Joe Bob did it. And it gave me the feels that, like, I was hoping for. Like, I was like, oh, wow, these people fucking love. And I hate when, here's the thing. I hate when people will like say like we're family. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they do. They look like a great little.
They do. If anyone has earned saying that, it's that.
Yeah, I don't know. The family thing fucking weirds me out.
Yeah.
But that's another
fair enough.
That's another tire.
Fair enough.
But anyways, one of the things that he was really fighting for, not really fighting for, but he did throw some punches, was the digital versus special effects thing, which. I can't
believe he said it.
Dude.
I mean, that is really. It's like. It's literally the level of walking into, I don't know, like a MAGA rally right now and saying that Trump lost the election. Like it just when it came out of his mouth, I'm like, wow, he just went hard.
Because it's not.
He planted a flag for CGI,
and thank fuck for that, dude. Because this isn't like an '80s horror film. It was '91,
right?
Which is weird because that was the year I was born, and when they were at the hospital, I was like looking around all the technology, and I was like, was I born during this?
This is how did I make it?
Yeah, they had pencils. How did they in paper?
That's amazing.
How did I survive?
They had pencils and paper. I probably got lead poisoning.
Yeah, so that was weird. But we're not we're very very active on our main page, and we have our Hollow Weekly group, which is still a real riot to go there. But I don't really pop in there that much,
right?
Very very often anymore. But one of the things I would try to fight for whenever I saw it was every now and then you just get this person who has a hair up their ass who wants to talk about how much better special effects are than VFX.
Let me tell you, it's not just there; it's everywhere.
I mean,
if I invented a social media platform, a week from now there'd be horror fans on it saying CGI sucks.
Like that. Here's the thing.
Well, what did Joe Bob say?
Joe Bob. Okay, Joe Bob had the right answer, first of all.
Okay.
It's right, because it's not black or white. It's not special effects are better or VFX are better. They are tools. They are tools for creative people to use to get whatever the hell they need out of it. You use your tools to maximum capacity. You're going to get a maximum capacity film.
Right, and what did he say about the end of Bride of Reanimator?
They could have used some VFX.
Right. Because the ending wasn't the way the director wanted it. The practical effects didn't work out. They didn't have time to fix it. So it's a truncated ending.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be a bunch of stuff that
it's supposed to be like Cabin in the Woods elevator scene.
Yeah, tons of monsters that Herbert
But
West
instead
has created.
It's like 4 monsters.
Yeah, it's like 4 people and
right, because they couldn't get it. They spill the reagent, which is an amazing scene, an amazing thought. And when I saw it happen, I was like, "Oh shit, we're fucked." Bam.
Right.
And then nothing really happens because they didn't have CGI. So Joe Bob's like, sometimes you need it. Sometimes you don't. Right.
I'm just glad someone like him said it, because there's this group of nothing but 80s horror, diehard horror fans who, God love, if that's what you love, that's great. But it's usually that crowd who comes out and shits on VFX.
Right.
And meanwhile, I'm like, you know how many VFX are in movies that you don't even see? Like, because they blend in. Like, there was an old video. I mean, this video is old now, and VFX have gotten better. Where it was like, Martin Scorsese using VFX that you didn't even notice, and it was like putting houses in the background to help, sell. It was like Wolf of Wall Street or something, or something like that. And it just always blew my mind that like.
Well, it seems obvious that the right argument is the people that are there. If you're where your true talent lies. Mozart shouldn't have been a skateboarder. He should have been a classical music composer.
Right.
If there are geniuses of CGI, then they should be doing CGI, and they should be doing it in great movies and TV shows, right? Like, if they have a talent, and if there's genius practical effects people, they should be doing that too. But you shouldn't be making someone who's got a gift for something not do it, or like, right? That's the right answer. It's just wherever it's the best tool, use it.
Here's where why it kind of bugged me, because I always imagined, like, me and my friends who loved horror movies, it's usually of a very creative crowd of people who have artsy activities, whether it's playing guitar or whatever, any kind of art,
Right.
Drawing,
Holding a
seance, sacrificing people,
sure, right.
yeah, shit like that.
Right. Creative.
And so I just always imagine that like the creative horror fan would be able to see how it's a tool, to see how like maybe it's not the answer all the time, and if people rely on it 100% and they rush it, it's going to be bad. And so when I see that they're not the creative type to see the use of it.
Let me argue it the opposite direction. So
Okay.
the opposite direction is, I think horror fans are more loyal, pound for pound. They're more
I would agree with that.
emotional. So when you're watching something and it's ruined by a bad VFX, that's what you remember, and you got to work to not fall for that. That's a pretty a common life problem, not just.
But a
with this
lot of those
argument,
people will look at the great
I know,
VFX and the terrible script,
I-
and then that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Or the terrible acting, or the cheap,
Right.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But I just think that it's more of an emotional mistake than a creativity lapse, right? But regardless of what's causing it, I think it's also interesting that Joe Bob did it, and I think it's interesting where it happened. I find this really fascinating because he may have planted this flag elsewhere. I haven't seen every Joe Bob. I watched Monster Vision all the time. I've been with him from the start, but I haven't been able to watch all the Shudder stuff. I haven't seen a lot of the holiday things yet, right? So I don't know. Maybe he said this before, but the fact that he just came out and said it during Bride of Reanimator, which is an amazing practical effects
There's
movie.
4 teams,
Right, an
working on it.
amazing practical effects movie. There were scenes in there where we were looking at each other. We were like, "This is as good as like Frankenstein's Lab or any like top tier horror experience."
Yeah.
There are close up shots of, and then apparently Jeffrey Combs had this relative who came in and like vetted the chemistry and made it more accurate. By the way, we'll get to this, but Jeffrey Combs is a fucking genius, an incredible human being in an interview. You could just tell, like, what a blessing to have him in the genre. But so the fact that there's a whole bunch of the 80s practical effects people you're talking about were watching this Joe Bob, and they were being like, they don't make him like this anymore. They don't make him like this anymore. Cut to Joe Bob, and he's like, CGI is great, and they were like, what the fuck just happened? I just love where it went down.
No, it couldn't have been in a better place. And here's the thing: Joe Bob has, he's a force in the horror field, rightfully so. Like he's very, very smart. He's very,
Almost
very
last man
entertaining.
standing.
Yeah, kinda.
Right.
Kinda. I mean, I haven't tuned into Sven Gulli.
Well, Sven Gulli's still going, but I mean, whether it's there's a lot.
He
of
did
people
share one of our posts
who
the
left
other day.
us. Oh goddamn!
That's the only reason why I could name Sven Gulli. Because I just don't watch the other stuff. Joe Bob's
right.
I know what I'm getting. I don't know. I hope with someone like Joe Bob, he can show them like, hey, it's not so bad. All the CGI,
It's definitely gonna help.
I hope it helps. But it's just one of those annoying things in the horror community where it's like, well, I guess film community in general, because a lot of people say that too. They always go, oh yeah, they just use those cheap VFX. I'm like, those VFX aren't that cheap. You gotta pay people to do it.
Right, and he had a really. By the way, Joe Bob also props for being an incredible interviewer, underrated at how good he is at it when he's on. Sometimes I swear to God, I think he's drinking during these shows, because there's just sometimes where he's not connecting what was being said to what the next things that are being said are.
Right.
But I mean, that's his thing. But they were talking. He was talking to Jeffrey Combs, and he asked him, and he was talking about that element of movie making where it's a lot of hurry up and wait, a lot of like the practical effects people. They want it to look great. They're prepping it to look right, and he's like, we're just in the trailer, hours going by in makeup, where they're like, oh, the effects are almost ready. And you think about how hard they work to make that shit look good and come out into things that make us, happy and that are memorable for us. And God damn it, when they do it great, that's great. And then when CGI, that's great too. I mean, come on now.
Yeah. No, I've been digging this season of the last drive-in.
Can we specifically now? All right, so Joe Bob, or whatever, whoever's listening, like whatever, to walk away for a second. Appreciate that. Okay, can we talk about House by the Cemetery Eli Roth situation real quick? Because the House by the Cemetery thing, I loved. I absolutely loved. I loved the presentation. I thought Joe Bob did an incredible job when he was talking about, you know, what the pluses of it or the context of where that movie comes from, etc. That movie still has authentic scares in it. It's still like whatever. But so first of all, as a callback to the start of the episode, right? It's unsettling. It creeps up on you. It has time jumps. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So that's why I say, hey, Fulci, nice movie.
Hey,
Good movie, man.
Hey, Fulci, nice
Right?
film.
Right, nice film. Because it reminds me of Hey Man, Nice Shot. It's quieter. It's got like this really dark emotional undertone where these people are going through horrible things. Like, and there is like straight up emotions are being addressed because some of these people are psychologists or academic.
I could actually review this movie like Eli Roth. If you want to see what that sounds like.
This whole episode's about to go south really fast.
Okay.
All right.
Here's
right.
Eli Roth's review.
Jesus.
Oh, so the great thing about Lucio Fulci is that his films, because they're Italian and they were inspired by the Americans, they feel otherworldly. And what's great about that is when the actors had to redub it, it felt so weird, making it feel otherworldly. And what's great about it is they were supposed to film it in New Jersey, but they filmed it over in buttfuck England, and it made it feel otherworldly. And what's great about it is that the film was otherworldly, but we were in our own world, and that's Italian cinema.
So Italian cinema is butt fucking otherworldly. So here's the thing. The weird thing about first of all, I don't know what was happening in this episode. I would never change a thing. I loved every second of it. So I'm not complaining. But Joe Bob, who has forgiven plot holes that I could drive Neptune through,
Right.
could not get over the non sequiturs that were happening in House by the Timber. But why is they here? Why is this babysitter doing
What's
this?
he do for a living?
Right, like it was a little strange how stuck he was on it. I think that he's reflexively rebellious. I think he thinks the Italian side of horror is like the nice side of town side of horror, and he's coming for it. He's gonna
Right.
mess it up, right? So he just for some reason couldn't go over that. But Eli Roth,
And let me be clear with Eli Roth.
yes.
I do remember reading in the Springfield News Sun when I was in high school that the movie Hostel, or was it Cabin in the Woods, was coming out soon. And I like both of them. I do like
I
those
know.
two movies from Eli Roth.
Totally.
Everything else,
No, I was just defending his remake of Death Wish, so it's not like
Okay, yeah.
I'm not going after Eli Roth personally. I'm in the context of this show. He was brought in to defend Lucio Fulci, right?
Right.
And the defense specifically, this is like watching a courtroom drama. This was like watching, Inherit the Wind or something like, right? Like this was Joe Bob was like, this movie makes no sense and is overrated. I don't know why Darcy likes it. I don't know why you Italian horror fans rave about it. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. I get that there's great images in it, but this movie fucking doesn't make sense. And it pissed, like, you could just tell he was like, I need someone. And he literally said, I brought Eli Roth on specifically to explain this movie to me, right? And then Eli Roth came on, and every time Joe Bob asked him a question about the movie, he either gave him a fact about the movie that did nothing to help Joe Bob understand the movie, right? Like, Joe Bob would be like, well, why is the professor driving 2 hours to go study or whatever? And Eli Roth was like, Italian cars are zippy. right. So like he was giving him a fact about like the speed of Italian cars, but it did nothing to solve his problem.
Right.
He was so unsatisfied. You could see it on Joe Bob's face. He was getting angrier and more
kept asking him
unsatisfied.
story questions.
Even though he loves Eli Roth and he genuinely respects him, and you can tell. But it was even like a magic trick. It was like weird because Joe Bob was waiting for Eli Roth to take this boulder off his chest, explain the plot, why this masterpiece actually does make sense.
Right.
Like that one, like a great like YouTube video where you don't know what the hell David Lynch's Lost Highway means, and 8 minutes later you do, right? That's what he wanted. That's the experience he wanted. And then Eli Roth was coming in and he'd be like, Quentin Tarantino, he has this hilarious accent when he talks, and he holds seances and he talks to dead Italian directors. And Joe Bob would be like, right, but why is this ghost like doing this thing?
He would ask him like a story question. He'd be like, you'd really have to ask the writers. I'm like, well, what the?
Right, and that's what I'm saying is, as a courtroom drama, right? It was the most disappointing because the lawyer just was arguing a whole different case, right? At the end, he was like, and that's why you can't find Lucio Fulci guilty of manslaughter. I closed my case. And Joe Bob's like, well, he was up for littering. But, great arguments. What's happening? You guys are talking right past each other. So it was a very strange, why it went that way. Eli Roth obviously has great affection for Fulci and knows his family and advances horror in that way, so that's great.
Yeah.
But holy shit, like I was so angry watching him like not fight for this movie any harder than falling into like the bantery, jokey,
what would
construct.
be a great segment?
What's that?
So the viewers don't know this. Whenever like George and I watch a movie, if something happens and we need to talk about it, George says, hold on, pause it for a second. I need to start recording those so I can just drop them into the episode. And then it's called this week's hold on, pause it for a second. And then that's the fucking second.
I could totally.
Because the pause that you did I actually think it would be a fun, I always
you
want
do it too because I mean I'm like that once I pointed it out you could see he was doing it every time. I watched you get mad.
Exactly. But there's always this podcast that I always want to listen to, and I almost thought about it yesterday. I was like, I should ask George what it was called. It's the one where they ask the audience a question, they poll them.
Oh, Intelligence Squared.
I love that idea, and I almost feel like you and Eli Roth need your own episode of Intelligence Squared. I think it'd be fair because that was what the hold on, pause it for a second was. It was almost like your argument.
And the other thing was, it was so obvious what not the right, that's the wrong way to put it, but it was so obvious what the lawyer should be doing, right? Because the lawyer should be doing it's the Haunting of Hill House. I mean, the house itself is causing some of the things that you think are plot holes just by sinister manipulation. Like it's a plot hole in The Shining that the Overlook Hotel's freezer door opens.
Right.
It's a plot hole.
It's weird that they didn't bring up The Shining at all when they were talking about it,
right?
because there was a lot of Shining.
The House by the Cemetery definitely had shine. Like I don't even know. It could have been filmed before. It could be impossible. These movies couldn't even know about each other. I don't know. They're very close in time,
right?
So it's possible that it's just coincidence. But it's insane how you except for the Jack Torrance of House by the Cemetery has literally 3 emotions.
Yeah, and this was 1981, and The Shining was 1980. So
right, but that's what I mean. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
He could have filmed House by the Cemetery in 1979.
I feel like they made those movies in like a week. They were just, you know what I mean? They always feel like
could be a year and a day after The Shining. He just made it a week.
It just was like, I need 1 week. And
it felt like a lot of Shining was in there for sure.
Yeah.
But the answer to a lot of the objections about why, because there were crazy things happening. The one argument that Joe Bob made that I couldn't figure out how to refute because I was on the other side of it, so it'd be a hypocrite for me to not whatever, is that the creepy babysitter was doing creepy babysitter things. She was definitely doing the nanny from the Omen vibe all the way through the movie, until she gets attacked by the house and its demons, and then somehow she had no idea any of this shit was happening, even though she spent the whole movie skulking around, staring at people ominously, and cleaning up blood patterns that looked like an entire pack of elephant seals had been killed. Right? Like it was
pretty bad.
It was but then all of a sudden she wasn't in on it the whole time, so then she was just a weirdo. That is a little off. That felt a little, convenient.
Well, that's actually because the Italians were influenced by the Americans. And she was
otherworldly.
And the Americans were influenced by the Italians. So you had this cross.
You're trying to provoke me.
So I don't know if you do that, George. They were very influential.
Yeah, that was bad.
But now I'm always looking forward to new Joe Bob. Like even like when I like didn't catch up with them the first couple weeks they aired.
Totally.
I'm always interested, like on Friday night, to see like what's trending and like
Oh,
that's why I saw Bride of Reanimator. I saw them all talking about and how they had all these talented people working on the special effects, and I was like, oh shit, I think we need to check this
And
one.
you love monster movies and monster effects, so it was a natural, whatever. And we got to talk about that because that movie was amazing. We'll get to that one second. But just to finish with Eli Roth, though, the weird thing is I liked what I saw The Beyond, which is my favorite Fulci. I saw it just randomly, I forget where I came across a long time ago. And even though I like that movie better than House by the Cemetery, although I now like House by the Cemetery better than Zombie 2.
Same. I agree.
The weird thing is that I like that it was in the Eli Roth context, because as much as it was aggravating me, his enthusiasm was part of the experience. Mm-hmm. The whole thing felt like it was fun to watch the movie, but it was also fun to dip out of it and take a break and then be in that scenario. There's something about the way they present it that makes those movies more fun to watch. I highly recommend, if there's a movie that you were putting off that like I always wanted to watch it, everyone fucking always talks about goddamn, the Mother of Tears, and I've never seen it. If you find a Joe Bob presentation of it, that's the way to watch it.
Yeah.
Because you're with friends, he's smart. It's just a great way for it to go down.
When I saw they were talking about like criminally underrated. The first film was criminally underrated sequel, and the other one was just criminally underrated. I thought they were doing criminally underrated sequel night,
right.
And I was like, man, could you imagine if they did Reanimator 2 and The Fly 2?
Yeah.
Because The Fly 2 is actually pretty...
The Fly 2 is pretty damn good.
Pretty
and
good. That was...
Pet Sematary 2 is pretty damn interesting. There's a lot of people who think I'm crazy when I say this, but I like Amityville 2 as much as 1.
Yeah, you were saying that.
Right now, so... Because I went, so there's some there's some sequels. Exorcist 2, no, but so there's a lot of times.
2, no, that is a hard.
But like Hellraiser 2 is interesting in its own right. Although ultimately I like Hellraiser 1 better, but you find some strange gems in that.
Hellraiser 2 was what made me even start to appreciate the Hellraiser franchises. It was always like. I used to put Hellraiser and Child's Play at sort of my bottom franchise.
Totally.
Love for it. It just wasn't my thing.
Yep.
But Hellraiser 2 was the only film from Joe Bob's that I actually went and listened to the soundtrack for later that night, because the Hellraiser 2 soundtrack is amazing.
That's right.
And that scene when that like
the doctor
6-minute scene.
Yeah, you love that.
God, we all took a breath. That was actually a really good cutaway when they went to Joe Bob after that scene. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of like, well,
that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly my point. So Joe Bob's changing lives. I love it.
No, he's doing good.
So Bride of Reanimator was amazing visuals. I don't agree with Joe Bob. He tried to defend the Batwing's head. I can't do it. But almost everything else in there, including that performance, minus the Batwings, is spectacular. But Jeffrey Combs, I mean, that just won me over completely, because you could just tell that you were dealing with one of those decent but mega talented people who are wired in just like a totally unique way, like a Vincent D'Onofrio or I mean, it's remarkable, right? Or Isabel Johnny or whatever. Like you could feel that he's just special. And Joe Bob was joking around, but he's right. I mean, he owned that role. So, right?
He there was the scenes when the detective shows up and he's talking to him and the other scientist, and they are.
It's bad.
Wolf.
Yeah,
they're
bad.
trying.
It's bad.
But I loved listening to Jeffrey Combs talk about the acting, because there was that scene when the detective was in their house. He still wasn't backing down. Like, he was still like trying to be like the alpha dog. And then Jeffrey Combs was like, yeah, he doesn't think anything he's doing is wrong. He's just like
Totally.
he doesn't understand how people
No,
function.
that scene is actually amazing. That's an amazing performance moment for that character, because that we have seen that scene a million times in movies. It's this we've seen it in Idle Hands, we've seen it in everything, right? It's the scene where there's something loose in the house. The people who are doing the bad things know about it, and the people who are in the house who are either police or detectives or neighbors or whoever visits or whoever, they don't know. And it's running around behind them and you think it's going to jump on their shoulder or it's going to drop from the ceiling on them, whatever. It's when are they going to become aware? And then the people who are watching it, who know about it, are like biting their fingernails like, oh yeah, wait, you know. And Jeffrey Combs gives zero fucks about any of that. Just like his character, Herbert West is like talking to the detective, holding a debate and still scoring points in the debate when a four-fingered eyeball spider creature is creeping up on the detective. Jeffrey Combs, Dan is freaking out inside, and Jeffrey Combs is like, no, this is wrong. I'm like, I'm gonna win this argument. It was
if you look at it like I don't know, I don't know if this is a football play, but I'm not a coach. I've only played a little bit of Madden, but like the idea of it you have your scene. You have a character who knows and doesn't care. Mm-hmm. You have your character that knows and cares, and you have your character who doesn't know at all. Like just that triangle dynamic is just always going to work.
But it's never a triangle when they film it. Like when they film it now, if Adam Sandler was making that, well, that's not fair anymore. But if the average person is making that movie, there's two people or three people or a side that knows and cares, and there's a side or a person who doesn't know. That's it. It's never a triangle. It's a biangle, right? It's a fucking line. So the fact that it's more complicated is the point. The movie is just better. It's trying harder. It's from more interesting material. It's stealing a lot of stuff, but it's doing it in a very interesting way where you can forgive it.
Well, you know what's funny? You were sitting, like when we were watching it, you were like, I'm glad this was made in the time before they would be like, hi, sir, I'm Officer Romero, and this is my buddy
Wes Carpenter.
Right. And you're like, oh, geez, because back then they were in their fucking prime doing their thing. But like they were taking a lot from from other movies and Bride of Frankenstein.
Definitely.
But they were doing it in a way that didn't feel like the other way where they're doing the Officer Cravens and stuff like that. They were doing their love for these other films while still doing their own thing, and it just plays
like a hybrid,
so
which is what the whole plot is, right?
Yeah.
Sticking things that don't belong together. And I'll tell you this, and this was a very strange experience for me. So I'm a grown man. I'm old now. So I walk
He's
home.
107.
I'm 107. I walk home. It's dark. Of all things, you wouldn't expect to be Bride for Reanimator, which has a reputation for the people even who defend it, right? They would defend it as fun and gonzo and brilliant or whatever, but scary probably wouldn't be the thing. But there's something about that movie that really, really got under my skin, and I was thinking about getting home. I was getting unsettled. I'm like, is this really happening from this like basically comic movie, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not, because when you're walking by a bunch of houses and people are just a bunch of strangers and they're just going about their day or whatever, and you just watched a movie where there's a character that tore its heart out and offered it over. It was kind of haunting, right? You wonder like how many. I was walking past the houses wondering like how many people in there are like metaphorically tearing their hearts out trying to prove something to a spouse or a friend or a boss or like whatever, and they tear out everything they have that's valuable and hand it over, and then it doesn't work.
Right.
So that was unsettling just from the start, right? And then when you have that kind of Captain Ahab monomaniacal focus of the Herbert West character, and you realize that he's a liar. Like, he is such a liar. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that really got to me that I never noticed before, and I wonder if it's in the Lovecraft material. It's been so long since I've read it, so I got to go back and look for it. But there's two Herbert Wests, all right? So let me break this down real quick. One is, it's alive. Like, we have creation in our hands. Life is clay. You mold it, right? And then there's this accusation that Dan drops in the middle of the movie, just in a very strange line, where he says, "You're just doing this morbid doodling, just sticking things together like because you're perverse," or whatever, right? And he's like appalled. Herbert West is appalled. He's like, no, it's grand. It's like, we're, and then he's selling this to him where I'm using your lover's heart, and where it is, he lays it in one of the most beautiful shots of a horror movie, right? Like, in the middle of the table. We'll start here and we'll build around it. And he's got all these grand ideas or whatever. But every time you see Herbert West alone, he's just morbid doodling. He's just fucking sticking shit to other shit. And with his creepy smile on his face when no one's watching. And then when the reagent spills at the end and the things come out, I know it wasn't as spectacular as they wanted, but you got the vibe of what they were going for. Mm-hmm. And then you realized there's things you hadn't seen yet, which means there were hours and hours of Herbert West that we weren't seeing, just like a toe, stick it in an ear, like to this, make it walk, like whatever. It's like Human Centipede, but times 50, but it was all implied, right? Mm-hmm. And Herbert West is meanwhile dragging his friend through these adventures on the promise that it's grand. Like, we're scientists, we're making a difference.
Right.
Like, but I mean,
it's kind of nasty.
It turns out he's just a morbid doodler. It really stuck with me, like, that the accusation from the dumbest character in the movie was correct. Right? Like, and the smartest character in the movie would explain it another way, and he's wrong. Like, the dumbest character is smarter than the smartest character. And it just weirded me out walking home. I'm like, this movie is creepier than it seems, because when you start to think about it, you're like, there's a lot that's just off here, which I guess is fitting for Lovecraft, right? Because that's his architecture's off, his like dialect, the language, all of that, right? So I mean, it makes sense, but I didn't expect it from this movie. So good on the Yuzna and the whole crew, and especially Jeffrey Combs, like, to unsettle a jaded horror fan at this point with a comic sequel is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to rewatch the first one. They did the first one. I think season 1 they did the Reanimator. So
he said it was one of the most popular episodes.
Yeah, so I think I want to check it out.
And then Being Joe Bob waited 5 years to do it. Another Reanimator, because he's so stubborn.
Well, I think that was wasn't that the difference between the first one, or when the first one, like 85 or something like that?
Yeah.
So maybe 6 years old. Okay, wasn't that one? Joe didn't do that long. There was one scene though that when Herbert was trying to tell Dan that, like, he was doing the right thing for Dan, and mm-hmm. like how this is going to help him out and all this other stuff, and it had me question, like, he was selling me that he was his friend mm-hmm. and that he cared, but then I was like, I don't trust this motherfucker.
Yeah, and he dragged him out of the war, literally. Yeah. So maybe I am being too hard on Herbert West, but I don't think so. I think
Herbert saved him for a very selfish reason.
I think he needs a liaison to humanity, right? This is, okay, everyone just tune out and come back 20 seconds from now. But it's fitting, actually, because it's Shakespeare, and Jeffrey Combs turns out to love Shakespeare and have done some amazing Shakespeare himself, so good for it. But in Hamlet, it's pretty famous that he becomes a ghost. He drifts away. He becomes super dark. Anyone that's near Hamlet dies. Just basically in Act 1, he's a really charming talker, and by Act 5, he's just toxic. Anyone near him is screwed. So as his poison spreads, and he's walking around wearing all black and talking about to be or not to be, like existential dread and whatever.
Right.
He's got a friend. His friend's Horatio, and Horatio doesn't see any of this. He thinks Hamlet's great the whole time. He doesn't notice that he's changing into a fucking monster in front of his eyes. But they were like, it's weird that Horatio doesn't notice, and a lot of the people who explain Hamlet explain that part as he's the bridge to the audience. If we didn't have him, Hamlet would be too weird, too far away. We wouldn't be able to empathize him. But when we see him through his friend's eyes, we still, care, right? So like I feel like Herbert West knew he needed a bridge to humanity. And that's what this guy is, right? This guy brings him victims, there's an opportunity for more body parts. He answers the door when the police come, right? He does the heavy lifting. He's physically larger, right? So he's his Igor, basically, and he wasn't going to give up his Igor. I don't think they're friends.
Yeah. See, that's where
which
it
is
always
crazy
ends up.
because they're super friends in real life, like in a weird way. Like I don't mean in a bad way. I just mean it's so rare that in Hollywood, genuine, friendships and affection last over 3 decades or 4 decades of a career. But they were, great friends on the movie, and now they're great for he literally, Jeffrey Combs during the Joe Bob thing was like, I talked to him 3 days ago.
Yeah, they're like,
it was really cool.
Our story's not over. We'd like to tell one more.
Yeah, by the way, get on that. Yeah, absolutely.
I think they should.
They should. They should do that, and they should make At the Mountains of Madness. They should, all this stuff should happen.
Isn't that been going on for a while?
I think that's over.
Yeah. And every time they're always like, Guillermo del Toro's going to do it. And then they're like, someone else is going to do it. And it's never going to
I
happen.
think that one's over. So both great movies. Joe Bob definitely is A+ in it over there.
Yeah. And I'm always so bad at emailing his assistant when he's open for interviews. Like, I have missed it, Mark, so many times. Like, I would still love to have him or Darcy on the show. Honestly, I think it would be great. But, like...
But now it's like Lucy and the football at this point.
It is. Because here's the thing. Isis knows, but we emailed Joe Bob before the Shudder thing happened. Mm-hmm. I was like, it'd be really cool to have him on the show. Then, thank God the Shudder thing happened, because then he blew up, and like rightfully so.
Totally.
And I've been trying to get an interview with him for so long, and his assistant's very nice, but they're like, he's doing emails from here to here. Email me here, and then I'm like, okay, got it. And then, like, it's always so far out, and when the time comes, I'm just completely fucking forgetting it. So,
well, and he's working his ass off. That's one of the magic tricks of that thing, is someone who looks so laid back is like hustling, like
right. Always doing that rednecks in Hollywood thing. And
that's a lot, and that's a lot of content.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
So good for them.
Yeah,
I think it's going amazing. Is there more for this season, or are they done? I can't remember.
I don't know. I don't know how many they did. 6 episodes or something like that.
Hopefully
I think there's like 1 or 2 more.
There's got to be more, because they always do like a cool finale. That's another thing about the series that I really appreciate. So I was reading like a ranking of HBO shows,
right?
Like the HBO best HBO shows ever. Some wild differences going on, but I was like, I haven't seen that. HBO is a particular kind of product,
right?
Like you're getting something, and it's going to have a vibe, even if it's a totally different. Whatever. Sometimes you're just in the mood for it. And I thought I had kicked over most of the underrated gems that were HBO series. Rome is my favorite go-to one for people who it's a series apparently no one's seen, but was fantastic. But Boardwalk Empire comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, I'm gonna watch this, because I passed on it at the time because it felt like a Sopranos cash grab, but it looks really good. Steve Buscemi is amazing. Michael Shannon, I'm a huge fan of, apparently. So I'm like, I'm going to check this out. But when I was reading the list, strangely, 4 or 5 of them, Paste Magazine was one of them. I don't remember the other, Ranker, probably, whatever website. Almost all of them had John Oliver's Last Week Tonight in the top 15.
Really?
Of the all-time series, right?
Wow.
And the Larry Sanders Show is almost all of the top 5 of the list, but that's fictionalized. But I didn't think of the series as, I just expected fictional shows, right? So I started thinking, and if Shudder becomes as huge as it possibly can be, like dominates horror, becomes the Fangoria of the 2020s or whatever. And goes on to become a huge mega thing with its unlimited AMC resources,
right?
Then maybe 15, 20 years from now, they'll rank Shudder series. And Joe Bob is going to be in the top 5, no matter what happens to Shudder. I
believe that.
Like, no matter what they do or the originals they create or whatever, it's just, there's something so unique and irreplaceable about what happens over there.
That's the other thing, is I wanted to watch more of The Last Drive-In, because I was thinking about the episodes that we did watch. They've always been like, he always shows great movies. He's always saying great things about the movies. He does not always
show great movies. Come on.
Well, no, I mean, but they're entertaining.
Yes.
And if they're not entertaining, he gives them the fun elements of it, and he gives you things to look forward to, all the bad stuff to look forward to, like when they showed his Boar or whatever it was movie,
Hogzilla.
Yeah, Hogzilla.
I mean, that was great, because that was a love letter to whoever. For some reason, it's hard for me to get into when they show new movies. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's not as
I feel the same way, and it's interesting. So
except for Scareback.
I wanted to try to jump in. Like, I wanted to go to the second movie they showed after Reanimator. I don't know if it's a new movie.
Next of Kin.
Yeah,
it is a new movie.
It is a new movie. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to try to maybe jump in it, like maybe throw it on my second monitor and like play some video games and just see if it's any good. And,
hell yeah,
and whatever. But like, I was just thinking about like how I was watching the old promos for Monster Vision and how I was like, I vaguely remember seeing the commercials on. I don't know if I ever really watched a full episode
Probably
or
not,
something
too
like
young.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't quite remember that. And I was like, man, it'd be really cool to like experience that and to be able to watch that. And I was thinking about all the episodes I wasn't watching, and I was like, well, I don't want to be me watching those old Monster Vision promos, wondering what it would have been like to experience that.
Right.
So I want to continue.
That's so weird that you inceptioned yourself.
I did. I inceptioned myself into watching more Joe Ball because I didn't want to, like, 10 years down the road see, The Last Drive-In, and then, you see all these, younger horror fans being like, oh, I wish I would have caught that live. And all these people are like, yeah, it was great. And then I'm sitting here like, well,
Yeah, it's like
I missed out.
I literally-
So I haven't gotten over my FOMO.
No, you
Oh
haven't.
my God.
Good full circle.
Whoa.
See? It was lurking the whole time.
Wow.
Right? Like, right. It
Therapy.
was there in the background. It jumped out at you when you didn't think about it. That's why
Son
I say,
of a bitch.
hey man, nice FOMO.
Nice FOMO.
Nice-
Hey, man.
nice FOMO, man.
That's the title. No, we're not doing titles anymore. We're just doing the
No, that's the title. Hey
That's
man,
the-
nice episode was the.
Hey man, nice episode.
Was,
That's
is the title.
that's right. You
That's
didn't
the
tell me.
I didn't tell you.
You're-
I couldn't
yeah.
tell you because it would just be an immediate giveaway.
Hey man, nice episode.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
So the reveal is.
I hate how hard I went full circle this episode. That was,
that was impressive.
fucking wild.
We
dude.
are literally ending on what we.
All
started.
right. Well, if that blew your mind, give us an iTunes rating.
Yeah, go back in time 7 days and give us an iTunes rating of 7 days ago.
That was weird. Seriously, I don't think I haven't rechecked them, but I don't think we've gotten a 2021 review. So that prize, you can honestly just
Well,
say,
in their defense, we were doing
oh yeah, we were
some stuff.
we were MIA for a
Right,
minute.
that's
weren't
our
we?
fault, not theirs.
Oh, yeah.
But we're back. So
We're back.
You can come back too. Give us
Just brag about being the first of 2021.
give us a review. Give us suggestions. Give us something thoughtful to read in there. Some of those reviews, because Nick likes to give coded reviews. I'll log in and I'll be like Tusk 5 stars. I'll be like Tusk 1 word review. What the hell are they?
What is
talking
that about?
Like Aurora Borealis. I'm like, oh, this is one of Nick's codes.
Oh yeah, the last one was STL, and it was about degloving.
Right.
Those are the actually
Right,
the last.
that's what I'm saying.
Those are the last two. Those are my favorite.
So actually, write a couple like sentences would be amazing.
Yeah, something cool.
I'd
The
appreciate
people at
it.
Apple were like, ST, fucking whatever, weirdos.
5 stars.
Yeah. All right. Till next time, stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies. Talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Hi guys.